This is Dan Abbott. This is the third video in the series I'm doing on using DraftSight. In the last video we set up layers, and those layers had specific line types, colors, and line weights assigned. If I go to the drop down, you'll see we have a center layer called CEN, a hidden layer called HID, and an object layer called OBJ. What we're going to do is to draw something now using those layers. The object we're going to draw is this corner. It's a simple part. We're just going to use it as an example of how to lay out precisely some object in orthographic projection. So we're going to do multi-view on this. So if I start looking around at this, it's a simple part. Instead of an L-shaped part, little shelf coming on the bottom, there's a hole that goes through. Corners have rounds on them, something we're going to place with a fillet command. And then we have a cutout right here. If we looked at that directly from the front, it would look like this. If we change the appearance, so instead of being shaded, it's object lines and hidden lines, the front of the part looks like that. If we wanted to look at it from the top, we could kind of roll it toward us until we're looking straight down at it. That's what it would look like from the top. These lines right here are really computer-aided design 3D model effects. Those are the tangent edges between the arc itself, which is tangent to that plane, and the plane. And even though you wouldn't visually see that, most computer programs automatically show it because there is in fact an intersection between two surfaces. So go back to the top view. That's a hidden line, and that's a hidden line representing the hole that goes all the way through. Look back down at it from the front by rolling it back and then turning it clockwise so that we can see it from the right. We'd say a hidden line representing the back of that slot right there, and then two hidden lines which are representing the holes that go through, looking just like that. Again, that object line right there is a tangent edge that you wouldn't normally draw. Well, you would never draw if you were drawing by hand, but you wouldn't see by eye. Now, what would it look like if we drew it orthographically? We go over here to this image, and you have a front view, a top view, and a right side view. And in the 2D program, we're going to do is to draw those things individually. Let's start by drawing a rectangle representing the front view, and then we'll go around off those corners. Then we're going to go ahead and draw a right side view. The key thing is that the bottom of the front view and the bottom of the right side view have to line up if it's an orthographic projection. The top of the front view and the top of the right view likewise have to line up. The part's the same height, whether you're looking at it from the front or the right. Looking at the top view, the overall width of the part has to be the same as it is in the front, because again, you're looking at the same part. And then the depth of the top view from here down to here has to be the same as that 2.25 depth of the right side view from here to here, again, because we're looking at the same part just from two different points of view. So we'll go back to DraftSight. I'm on the object layer. I selected it. I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. I can type REC for rectangle, or I can go over here to the toolbar and select it. It asks me for the starting point of the rectangle. I'm going to drag my window up by pushing the middle wheel down, and I get that little hand, and I'm actually panning the view right. And that gives me the origin. I can tell it's the origin because that little X, it's actually a little cross right at the intersection between the Y and the X axis. That cross in there tells me that 0, 0 is located right here. If I were to drag off the screen so that 0, 0 isn't visible, that little cross disappears. I have an empty box. So I know that that's not 0, 0, that 0, 0 is off the screen. Bring it up, it looks like that. So I'm in the rectangle command. I'm going to start 2.25 units in the X, comma 2.25 units in the Y away from 0, 0. Then I have to start by typing the @ symbol to tell DraftSight that starting from the last point I entered, which is that corner right there, go at 4, that's 4 units in the x-axis, comma 2.5. That's the height of the part. Now I put this on the object layer, and the object layer has a line weight that is thick. It doesn't appear thick because by default DraftSight does not display line weights. If you want to see line weights, you can type in the variable that controls it, but it's a little hard to remember. So you can just go to Options by typing OP, Options, or right-clicking in any blank spot and then coming down near the bottom for Options. If you want to be specific about the option you're looking for, go to Drafting Options. It opens up options with Drafting Open. Drafting Options Open is not actually where we want to go. It's drawing settings or drafting styles. Let me see. It is drawing settings, display, you'll notice that the line weight, even though we set it to thick on the layer that this rectangle is on, which is the object layer, it doesn't appear to be thick. If you want to see line weights, if you want them displayed, what you have to do is go to the Options menu. You can get that by right-clicking and going down to Options. And once you're in the Options menu, under Drafting Styles, Active Drafting Styles, you can go into Line Font, take the option called Line Weight, and just check off Display Line Weight in Graphics area. I pick OK. Now you have something that looks like it's a thick line. I'm going to draw the right side view now, and I'll go over this time to the line command. Again, I can type the letter L for line, which is the way I normally draw. But just to show you where these commands are, if I go to the line command, I want to draw a line for that right side view. I can't just start drawing over here because that has to line up exactly, and by exactly I mean right on the money with the bottom of this part. If I look at the bottom of my status bar, Polar, which is a tracking control, Entity Snap, and Entity Track are all on, which means I can hover over this corner. Hover means don't pick a mouse button, don't select anything, just hover. I can hover over that and acquire the endpoint. You can see there's a little hard to see, a yellow box over the corner of the rectangle. But you can see the tracking line coming across those little black dots. That means my cursor is lined right up. So if I type the number 2, for instance, it means that my line's first point will start 2 units directly to the right of that corner. So I type in the 2, press enter. Now I'm going to get a tracking line. The tracking line allows me to draw in a specific direction as well, and I'll type 2.25, which is the length of the bottom of this part. Now I'm actually going to use some other tracking tools. Entity tracking again. I'm going to track off of this corner by hovering. I haven't selected anything. Move my mouse back. When I can see 2 tracking lines, you can see if I'm right there, I've got 2 tracking lines. If I'm not careful, I can get off of it. So I got 2 tracking lines right here. If I can see them, a left click goes exactly to where they intersect. I'm coming back with a tracking line, 0.5. I'm going to go straight down, type in a 2. I'm going to go over and hover over this end now, come back up, 2 more tracking lines. If they're visible, a left click goes to the intersection. Now I can go all the way down here, select endpoint. You notice I'm not going directly to the endpoint of the line, I'm going over here just to make sure that it really does go to the endpoint. If I'm too far to the right, I'm closer to the midpoint. Go left a little bit, I'm closer to the endpoint, left click, and it closes up. Now I'm going to go and do the top view. I'll grab another line, I'll hover over this corner, and what I'm going to do, because that yellow is so hard to see on the screen, there's a little indication right there, and a little cross and then a square that I've picked up an object snap. I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to change that color, and I'll be back. And I'm back. So now I'm going to go and draw another line. Do L for line this time. I'm going to hover over this corner. You can see what I've done is I've changed the color of the object box that I get. So now when I come off of it, it's red instead of yellow, a little easier to see. I'll put 2 inches of space between those as well. Hover over this point, go straight up. Now that means that the line I'm drawing is exactly the same length as the line in the front, which it has to be. Come back up here, 2.25. Come over here, hover, go straight up, get 2 lines, come back down, and then I'm going to go to the end point of that line. So I've blocked in all 3 of my views. There's a little trick I could have used. I'm going to go to polar tracking, right click, I'm picking settings, which is off the screen. And when I get the polar tracking set, I'm going to change my incremental angle to 45 degrees. I'm doing that just to show you that it's sometimes helpful to just go and put a construction line that goes from the corner and goes up at 45 degrees, because when I do that, it now allows me to use that miter line, is what it's called, to project up to the intersection of those 2 lines. If I have a line that goes up here like this, and then I can come from the intersection going across, that's another way to get features from one view projected to another when they don't line right up. So again, that's called a miter line. and it would have been useful for me to go and do the top view and the right side view, so I'm just going to leave it in there. Now let's go back to the object layer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle now. When I draw the circle, I'm going to select for the top view the midpoint of that line. When I draw the circle out, I'm going to type in a 1 for the length of the circle. And now I'm going to use a command called trim. The trim command can be found over on this toolbar that modifies things where the scissors are, where you can type TR at the command prompt. In order to use trim, you have to select the line you're using as a cutting line. So I could pick that line right there. When you're done, you press the right button or the enter key. Then you select what you want to get rid of, which is that piece right there. I'm going to undo that now, go back to trim, because it's also possible to pick multiple trim lines and then go back and to go through and pick more than one entity to trim at one time. I'll go back to the line command. I'm going to start here and go down, or I'll give you an example of how this miter line could be used. If I were to draw a line that went from this corner all the way up past that miter line, and then I drew a line from the intersection that came across here like this, the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here. That does mean I'd have to erase that line, and then I either have to grab this, take the grip, and bring it back to the endpoint, or I could have done not like that. I'm going to bring it back out again. I could have done the same thing with my trim command, using that edge as a trim edge, press the enter key, then select this line right here to get rid of it. I'll still leave my miter line on. Now I'm going to trim off of this corner. When I trim off of this corner, I'm going to come across. What I'm doing here is I want to draw a line that goes across and lines right up here. So if I start here, go over to there, go back and do a trim, say trim to that line. Now I've got the front lip of that, and it lines right up with the front edge of that. Now there's some other commands that are very useful when you're drawing with AutoCAD. One of them puts a little round corner on two lines that come together, and that's known as the fillet command. It's actually technically a round, and it's on the outside. It would be a fillet if it was on the inside. And if you look over on the right, fillet command is sitting right here. If I select it, currently the radius is set to 0, which means if I tried to fillet two lines with it, I would get a sharp corner. But if I go down and type the letter R, indicate I want the radius to be 0.5, and then go and select the two lines involved, I can say this line and this one, press the enter key, this line and this one. Now I have those two half-inch radiuses right there. I'm going to go again to the circle command. I'm going to hover on the midpoint. When I get the midpoint, I'm going to go straight up, type in a 1. I'm going to type D for diameter, and then I'm going to indicate I want the circle to have a diameter of 1. And now I have most of the object lines drawn. What I don't have yet is the line representing this corner right here in the front view. So if I come down here like this, I can line that point up. Fortunately, I can't snap to this right here. I don't believe I can I? I can track off of that. Okay, I can get two tracking lines that way. That would be the technique to use. This is a little different from the way AutoCAD works. So I'm going to go back to the line command. I'm going to track off of this corner right here, and I'm going to track off of this corner right here. And when I get both tracking lines showing up at the same time, left click, go down perpendicular, left click. Do the same thing here. Track down. The tracking line going down doesn't really stop when it gets here. Track off of the end of this. I've got two tracking lines showing, left click, go down perpendicular, left click. Now all of my object lines are displayed. Now the only thing I'm going to do right now is to go over and change my layer to hidden, and I'm going to put some hidden lines in. And when I put the hidden line, I'm not going to do the center lines on this one. When the hidden lines are on, I'll be done with this particular video. Go back over to the line command. What I want is to go off of the quadrant of that circle. And what I'm going to do is then go off of that corner. When I get both tracking lines, go from here over to here and put in my hidden line. When I zoom in, I realize it has two line segments. Those two line segments are not really short enough. If I select that, go back over to properties, I can change what's called the line type scale from 1 to 0.5. By doing that, I get 3 segments, which is more appropriate for this, on that hidden line. Now that's not going to change the ones that I add after that. For that I'd have to change the line type scale itself. So I'm going to go back over here, tracking off the circle. I'm also then going to track off of that corner right there. When I get both of them, left click, come over here and left click. I'm back to a line type scale of 1. I'm going to wait just a minute and I'll get back to that. Go back in the line command, hover over that corner, go back 1 unit, go straight down, take the quadrant of this circle, project it up, track off the end of that line, bring it over, left click, do the same thing on the other side of the circle. When I get the 2 tracking lines, didn't hover quite long enough to get that. When I get the 2 tracking lines, left click, come back down. And now I'm going to use the match properties command, or the properties painter, and say take that hidden line and match the properties to this and to these 2. Now they both have the same line type scale, which is 0.5. And I've got all my hidden lines in here, all my object lines in here. I can just erase that miter line and I'll be finishing up this video. It's about 16 minutes long, so it's a little long.